What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another Fly Time Friday. Tonight I got a pretty cool video for you. It's Galloup's Dungeon. It's a streamer that really started it all for a lot of people, including myself. When I was first getting into the big streamer game, it's like one of the first videos I saw, one of the first flies I started tying and being successful with. So it's a pretty sweet fly, and if you've been on my Instagram at all, if you follow me there, I've been tying a bunch of these for an order. So I've gotten pretty proficient at tying these things, and I've come up with little tips and tricks and some cool ideas just to help you through it, and hopefully you'll learn something from it. Kelly has his original video, of course, on this, and it's an excellent video. I recommend you all watching it if you want to see how the original pattern was tied. I'm going to follow pretty much exactly the same way he ties it. I'm just going to show a few different techniques. Like with this particular one, I blend the colors on the head of the deer hair head, so you can get like a really cool color combo going. Pretty much whatever you could imagine you could create with this deer hair technique. And I first saw Pat Cohen do this at a fly show, and it was just awesome. So I started doing it after that, and it works out really well. And there's just a few tips I want to explain to you along the way that makes this fly a little easier to tie. So we'll just get right into it here. This is the finished fly. This is the color we're going to go for. So I'm starting out with Firehole 839s in size 4 for the back hook, and the front hook will be Firehole 811s in size 2. So we'll tie the back portion of the fly first, starting off with some UTC 140 in an olive color. It really doesn't matter what color you use on this section, or any of the section really. It's all hidden as long as you tie everything in nice. So just get that secured on the hook. So the back portion of this fly is really basically just a glorified woolly bugger. So I'm going to grab some marabou for the tail. And for the tail, I'm going to use Kelly Galloup's technique of stacking marabou. So you have to just prepare the marabou a little bit here at first. You want to take that very tip out because that's a longer fiber than the rest of them. And also you want to take the really fuzzy fibers off the base of the stem. All that's doing for you for the rest of the fly is adding bulk. So whenever you preen all that stuff down, you get a nice even tail, and that also makes it a little thinner though. So we're gonna have to use just 2 clumps prepared the exact same way for the tail. So next what you want to do is tie in some wire. I'm just using some UTC small gold wire for this. Alright, next we're going to do a technique called a dubbing loop. We're going to go ahead and create a dubbing loop by just pulling out some excess thread and using this dubbing spinner. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to hook the dubbing spinner, if you can see that, hook it around there, make a loop that's about 6 inches long, and then wrap back over it. We're going to go around the base of that loop to tighten up the loop, and then advance your thread forward to the eye. And the body of this fly is ice dubbing. So you're just going to grab a healthy clump of this ice dub, and this is one technique I learned off Kelly's video, was just separate this out into like a nice long stream of dubbing, pretty fine and thin, and then you're just going to insert that right into the loop. And I don't know if you guys can really see this step, but right into the middle of the loop like that. And then I'm going to take this dubbing spinner and just spin it up until this dubbing creates a nice rope. And there we go. You basically have like I don't know, it's similar to, I guess, like cactus chenille or something like that, but we're just gonna wrap this forward. Now the hackle on this, we're gonna use schlappen. This is Nature Spirit schlappen. It's a much webbier feather, and it gives the fly a lot more bulk than just normal hackle or like the Chinese strung hackle or anything like that. Also, it's a good bit cheaper, so that's nice too. But we're just gonna prepare that by snipping off that fuzzy lower half and pull some fibers away from the stem. Now to tie in these stems, you wanna, this part of the stem is flat. It's flat and then it stands up tall this way, okay? So you're gonna take the shiny side of the feather, face it forward, and wrap it so that flat side is laying on the hook perpendicular. And I'm gonna do a figure 8 wrap around the stem and then start to spiral it back. So I do one wrap to secure it right on top of the hook, and then do a figure 8 wrap around the stem like you're tying down like dumbbell eyes. So that feather's gonna stick out at a perfect 90 degree from the hook shank. Trim off that little tag end and then go ahead and wrap it back. Just open spiral wraps. This thing's gonna look really wicked at first, but it turns out pretty cool. So we get to there, we take the wire, we're gonna go wrap that the opposite way to secure it. So right there, that feather's secured, it's not going anywhere. Now you just keep the wire straight up and down, 90 degree from the hook shank, and wrap forward in open wraps. And if you go pretty quick, you might have to pull it through once in a while, but if you go pretty quick, you really don't trap any fibers at all. And it makes a much more durable fly, because if a tooth or something gets in there and breaks that hackle stem, the rest of the stem's still secured, so it's still not gonna go anywhere. Just break that wire off. And then this back part, you can just cut that tip of the feather right out. And that's how, if you want to do your woolly buggers, that, like basically all I've made is a woolly bugger so far. So if you want to do your woolly buggers that way, that works really well. All right, so next we're just gonna add in 2 rubber legs. And the rubber legs I use, I just get from Bass Pro Shops and the jigs. You can get like a whole pack of these replacement jig skirts for relatively inexpensive. I don't know how much they are, but they last me forever. And I get them in all kinds of different colors. So what you want to do is just pull 2 long pieces off and wrap the one side down. I'll do my side. We're going to tie in this side, and then you're just going to flip them straight over and tie down the other side. Trying to keep it right down the side of the hook, and you want to trim them just a touch shorter than the end of the tail, which they should be right about there. That side could take a little bit off, but it should be right about there. So next we're just going to overlay another marabou feather right over top. This marabou feather should come about halfway back from the tail, so you get that nice taper. Good. Just tie that in. And at this point, the back half of this fly is done. We're just gonna kind of build up a little thread head here and whip finish and tie off. And now I'm just gonna take some Sally Hansen's Hard as Nails clear and go over that. It'll give it a nice glossy coat. So what I do is I'll tie a bunch of these rear half of the fly first and just lay out all the materials for that, crank out all of those that I want in whatever colors I want, and then by the time I get to the front portion of the fly, these are dry and ready to start just finishing off the fly. So set that off to the side. I'm going to grab my Firehole 811 size 2. This is a wide gap, just a real beefy hook. I've really been liking these Firehole hooks. I've almost switched exclusively to Firehole hooks. They're all barbless, super sharp, great hook. I'm going to continue with the same thread here, UTC 140. Work our way forward to the front. The first thing you got to do with this is tie down your dumbbell eyes. So these are the double pupil eyes. They're pretty sweet looking. So what I'll do is just a couple X wraps, let those eyes spin around at the bottom, and I'm setting these up so they're about one eye length back from the eye. So you want to do some cross wraps and then come around it and tighten up underneath, just by making circle wraps. The wire I use for this is just some bead wire. This is 0.45 millimeter bead wire, 7 strand, and it's basically a stainless steel nylon coated wire. It's a lot like what you use for wire leaders for pike, things like that. But I just get that from Walmart. It's pretty cheap. You can get it in black and silver, whatever you need. But we're gonna thread that on and just match the ends up, pull tight, and it'll kink that wire so that hook will stay there. And then I got these plastic beads. You need to keep your 2 wire strands running parallel the entire time. The wires just have to run alongside the hook without twisting. So you can kind of see through the beads whenever you're looking at it. Your wires can't be twisted up, or else this back fly is going to twist upside down. So what I do is just make a couple wraps, get it situated on the side of the hook, and then I'll pull it to the length I need. So what you need to do is just move your beads back to where that hook eye has plenty of room to play and wiggle, but so it won't foul or anything, but the beads aren't touching the eye. It has to be able to move freely. Now we just pull until this front bead touches the bend of that hook. So we'll just pull, and it's not going to take much on this particular one. We'll pull right there and you stop. We're going to go ahead and secure this down with some nice tight wraps. And when you get to the dumbbell eyes, you're going to run these underneath the eyes and back down the hook shank. And what we want to do is just use the back half of your scissors as far back as you can get and trim those right in the middle there. So that's going to create that taper for you. We're going to keep our taper of our body going, just tie that down, and there is no way, we're going to add a little bit of super glue to this here, but there's no way that's going to pull out because it's wrapped around your lead eyes, and this super glue just seals everything in, and it's not going to pull out, guarantee it. So now we got to cover up this junction point, and we'll just do the same thing we did with the marabou. Next, we're going to basically repeat the process we did for the body of the back half. We're going to tie some wire in, make a dubbing loop of the ice dub, and then wrap schlap it back. Alright, so now that we have the schlappen in, we're going to take a piece of marabou, prepare it the same way, and tie that in, overlapping the back, coming to the halfway point of that last piece of marabou we put in. Now we're going to add some more rubber legs. I'm going to take 3 long strands of these legs and tie them in the same way. These should come about halfway down the entire body of the fly. And you can just let them hang straight down, pull them all down together, and trim the bottoms flush. Alright, at this point I'm just going to whip finish by hand here, and we're going to switch thread to GSP 200. This gel spun thread is pretty much essential for any deer hair work you do. Now, this stuff is basically indestructible. I mean, you can pull as hard as you want and you'll bend the hook before it breaks the thread. So I'm going to secure these dumbbell eyes even more by wrapping around, and this is where they'll really get sturdy. Doing X wraps and then securing wraps underneath. And what I'm doing is I'm squeezing all that articulation wire and everything. I'm squeezing all that together around the eyes, and those are rock solid. They won't turn, they won't move, they won't do anything. We're gonna wrap back over our last tie-in point, and this is where we start the deer hair work. So first I'm gonna set a collar. For any deer hair work like this, you're gonna want deer belly hair. So this is belly hair, and I'm using orange and olive. The reason you use belly hair is because it's the most hollow hair and it's easiest to work with as far as stacking and spinning deer hair. So this goes for any bug that you need to do a head like this, or poppers or anything like that. Make sure you have deer belly hair. So this collar is going to be the thickest part of this entire head. As when we do deer hair work, a lot of times we talk about pencil thicknesses. So if you imagine like gripping a pencil, how thick that is, a lot of guys use that as a reference. So this is going to be like maybe 1.5 to 2 pencils thick of deer hair. The rest of the head, the stacks we do, are going to be much thinner than that. But this collar is made to splay out like pectoral fins of like sculpin or anything like that. So what we want to do is take roughly 1 pencil thickness of each of these colors. So this is a different technique that Kelly Galloup doesn't go over in his video. Basically, it's blending deer hair colors. So we're going to comb out all the under fur of this hair, clean it, prepare it, and for this collar, we want the tips. We want to keep the tips. So I got this little clump of olive prepared. I'm just gonna set that off to the side. I'm gonna do the same thing and grab some orange and prepare it. Okay, so I have these 2 clumps of deer hair. The reason I'm not using just straight orange is it's like super fluorescent orange. So I just want to tone it down a little bit and mix in some of this muted olive. So I'm gonna do about half and half mixture. What I'm gonna do is lay it, you probably won't be able to see this, but I'm going to lay it in the palm of my hand, tips facing the same way, and I'm just going to grab it with my thumb like that, and I'm going to pull some out and lay it back on. Grab it, pull some out, lift my thumb up, lay it back in. And I'm just going to do that. It's almost like shuffling cards or something like that. And just mix it all up. Make sure the color gets evenly distributed. Trying to keep those tip fibers still aligned. That's probably going to be your toughest part. Next, I'm going to take that mixture, put it into a Magnum hair stacker. We're going to align, that aligns those tips. I got a little bit of flash in there, but it works the same. So it'll align those tips. If you see any blunt butt ends that are facing the wrong direction, you want to try to pick those out. Just do the best you can with it. But right there, we have a fully mixed, prepared collar. So we're going to take those tips and get our length right. So we want to come about 2/3 back of the hook shank we're working with right now. So hold that there, take your measurement, transfer it to your other hand. Now I'm going to hold this really tight in this hand, and I'm going to trim a perfectly straight cut on that measurement. Then I'm going to lay that down, keeping this all tight together, and I'm just going to go, I'm going to twist my thread up. If you twist your thread clockwise, it'll create a loop that comes back like that. See how the thread's angling towards the back half of the fly? It just helps control it a little bit better. So we're going to grab all those tips, get 2 solid wraps in there, okay? So right now, you can see I don't have much tension on it yet. I'm gonna hold that and I'm gonna pull straight down and it's gonna flare all those ends. And I'm gonna work my way through one more time. And now what you wanna do is just take your thumb and press straight down on that and kind of work it around the hook shank, but you don't wanna have any hair on the bottom. Just kind of push it around the sides. Don't spin it all the way around. We're not spinning hair for this, we're stacking it. So right there we have a nice two-tone collar that flares straight back and kind of, you can see how it tapers right into that next marabou, and we got a nice taper going right now. Now I want to work all the way through all these butt ends and just make this thing super secure and bomb proof. Next I'm going to flip this fly over. Now if you look at the underside of this fly, you can still see my thread wraps in there, right in here. I don't have any hair on the bottom yet. Next, we're gonna take another clump, but we're only gonna go about half a pencil thickness of each color, okay? So, pretty much half the density of what we used for that collar. We're gonna get half a pencil thickness of each color here, mix it up, but this time we do not need the tips. So I'm just gonna prepare this, and you don't need to stack it or anything. Just cut the tips off so you can keep track of where your collar starts and where the head ends. I'm just gonna trim both ends up here. We don't need that. Just a straight clump. We're gonna lay that on top. Well, this is the bottom side of the fly. We're gonna make one wrap loose, two wraps, and then we're gonna support the edge of the clump here, both edges of the clump, and pull straight down and flare it down into those eyes. That's all it is. You don't have to make any more wraps through there. We're gonna go to the top side of the fly, do one more clump just like it right here in front of the collar, in front of the collar, still just behind the eyes. We don't want to move to this part of the hook yet. Pull straight down so it sets it on top of the eyes. This head isn't supposed to be super densely packed, and it takes a little bit of practice. This is probably the hardest part of the whole fly for me when I was starting, but now it's become fairly easy just because I realized I was using too much hair. So just small clumps placed perfectly, and you'll find a lot more success with it. So what we're gonna do is do two more stacks exactly the same way on top and on bottom, same mixture, same thickness, everything, and just try to suck them back in towards the eyes though whenever you set it. All right, so once you have those two stacks set, we want to just try to open up the eye a little bit. This is where keeping them long really helps. You just got to keep on combing them back and get up towards the front of the eye. And what you want to do is just work your thread out to the front. You really won't be able to see any of this just because I gotta hold it all with my fingers, but you want to just pull straight up to the front with the thread. It'll work through all that deer hair, and then make 5 or 6 turns right behind the eye. And what'll happen is when you keep this really tight, this GSP really tight, and make those turns, they'll just disappear into the deer hair. I'm gonna do 2 whip finishes just to make sure it's extra secure. And what you want to do is, so I made those turns loose with the whip finish. Now just really crank on it and pull straight back, and that knot will suck right up in to the head. We'll do that one more time. So right now we got this crazy looking head. You can hardly even see the eyes in there. That'll all change real quick here. So what you want to do is just preen out all those fibers of the hair and make sure they're staying straight up so the razor blade will cut. You definitely don't want to trim it with scissors. I mean, you can do it, but it's not going to give you as clean of a look. I got these off Amazon. It's like 100 pack of these razor blades. Relatively cheap. I think it was like 10, 11 bucks, something like that. But they'll last you a while. You can usually get 2 to 3 flies out of each blade. It's a double edge blade and they're pretty flimsy, so you can bend them. What we're going to do first though is the underside, and what you want to do is just get as close to the eye as you can. And this stuff, since the deer hair is so hollow, you just touch the razor blade on it and it should go right through the hair. If it's not doing that, you need a new blade. So what we're going to do is just kind of go up around the eyes. I'm going to do a rough cut and just keep the blade flat for the bottom. Just make a flat cut all the way down the head. Alright, so that's the bottom. That's all there is to it. And then for the front, we're going to do the same thing, but we're going to make a curved head. So I'm going to bend the blade pretty substantially and start straight. This is, you got to watch your thread, but I want to just do a real minor straight cut, right like that, to get the eye clear. And then I'm going to go up and just make an arching cut. Right over the top. And what you want to do is you want to stop before you get to that collar. That's really important. So see, when I hold this collar down, since it's longer, we can see where the head starts and the collar starts. Alright, so we got the rough shape of the head right there. Now I'm going to take my scissors, I'm going to take the fly out of the vise, take a look at it, looking straight down the fly, and trim the edges. Basically make 2 main cuts, one along the side of the head and then one angling towards the eye, which will round the head out. And I'm just gonna kind of be nitpicky about this, but really once you make those 2 cuts, right like this, on each side of the head, the fly's good at that point. I'm just gonna play around with making it a little bit prettier, get a few stray fibers. So that right there is pretty much it. As you can see, you get a nice even profile down the head. You want to keep it large. You don't want to trim it all the way down to the eyes. All you want to do is expose the eyes. As you can see, the hair is actually sticking out past the eyes on top. It's pretty much even below and in front, but on top you want that to have a nice flat wide profile like a sculpin. And that's pretty much it. I mean, it's an awesome fishing fly. But that's pretty much it. That's Kelly Gallup's Dungeon. Hope you guys enjoyed and learned a little something from it, and we'll see you next time.